I'll start by saying the acknowledgements to Kaurna people. We'd like to acknowledge that this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with the country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. And the Council pledge, we seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Thank you. So, welcome everyone. Declaration by members of conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? None? Okay, on leave we have Mayor David O'Loughlin. Apologies, we have Neil. Confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting. Someone to move the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Second, Councillor Barnett. All those in favour? Mayor's report, I'll move on to Mayor's report and the Deputy Mayor's report. Page 1. Want to move that? Absolutely, thank you very much. Everyone's a second. Councillor Stanton, any discussion? No? All those in favour? Carried. Verbal reports from council representatives on local government or community organisations. Anyone have anything interesting to report?
Can I ask a question?
Well, I don't know, actually, probably can. Is it a brief question?
No, it's about a development assessment panel. Does that count as a committee or no, it doesn't? Okay.
Nothing? Okay, thank you.
No, you might.
We'll move on. Petitions, we have nil. Deputations, we have nil as well. Motions on notice, there are none. Questions with notice, there are none. Questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice?
Is that when I do it? So I would get up and stand?
Get up, stand up. Right.
Yeah, I was just inquiring, in regards to the development assessment panel, at what point am I able to report that back to council, like the activities of the development assessment panel? That comes as an information report?
That's your question.
Thank you. Through the Chair, annually there's a reporting mechanism for the DAP to report back to Council as a whole. I guess from what I've observed in previous years, that's been triggered by staff essentially saying to the DAP members, have you got any reports or trends or issues or policy matters that you'd like to report back? And that's then accompanied by some of the work, I guess, done by staff, which talks about attendance and number of applications. So I'm not quite sure if that's where your question was coming from.
Kind of not. So I guess development assessment panel and the amount of development going on in Prospect, I don't know where in council meetings that could fit, if that could be more sort of regularly reported on in council meetings back to the other members of council.
Again, through the Chair, I think for a starting point, and then probably a point that it's used probably to the best of its ability so far, is the information report, the quarterly information report. There's not a specific strategic plan reference to the DAP. However, under general development, generally all the high figure or high cost developments have gone through that process. We could shape those words in future quarterly reports to reflect matters that have gone through that path, through its assessment, if that was a view.
Any other questions? Okay.
I would have made a comment on that one, but I won't. But I think it's important that the people do have the avenue, because then they can tell us of changes that they're worried about while it goes along, and we can nip it in the bud earlier. My question without notice is what I'm going to get to now, because I shouldn't have said that because it sort of made me forget it a little bit. Now I remember. I got a notice, or we all got a notice, an email regards the next Prospect magazine, because I got mine Friday, the previous one. So the next one that we're supposed to be writing for will come out before Christmas. That's my question. Will it?
Which year?
Yeah, okay, I'll rephrase that. This Christmas, because I don't want to put Merry Christmas again and offend people when it comes out about February.
I think so, yeah.
Through the Chair, I can confirm that we are heading for a pre-Christmas release. There was heading. I can confirm that it will happen. write Merry Christmas at the end, and it will be valid when people receive it in their mailboxes pre-Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, very good. We'll move on. The protocol, of course, is that we reserve items, only we only reserve those items that you wish to be pulled out of the agenda, so I'll go through. Report of the Audit Committee 13.1, anyone wish to pull that out? No. 13.2, CEO Recruitment Committee. 14.1, I'll pull out the information report. 14.2,
Can I just ask a question? Because I won't find it by the time you get there. I want to pull out the report that regards the 21 tree plan. It's in here.
it's pulled out.
It's done, is it?
Information.
I just didn't want to ask it.
15.1, that's allowed. 15.2, the Eastern Health Authority Charter Review. Kath Evans. 17.1, Resilient East Integrated Vulnerability Assessment Report. Right. 18.1, Planning, Development and Infrastructure Bills and Civil Employment. 18.2, Consultation Feedback to the Minister for Planning on existing activity centres for policy review development plan. 19.1, Budget Review 1. 9.2, the voting preferences for the LGA and the general meeting. And 19.3, the code of conduct. Right, so just to confirm, pulled out 14.1, 15.1, 15.2, 18.1. If I can have someone who will move the remaining items. Councillor Stanton, should I speak to it?
Fine, thanks.
Someone to second that? Councillor Evans? Anyone else like to speak to that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Evans, would you like to speak to that? Anyone else like to speak to that? All those in favour? Carried. Okay, so let's move to the information report, 14.1. Just before I open up for any brief questions before I ask for a mover, I just thought I'd mention a couple of things that are in the report which I found of some good interest. The first one is on page 10. Halfway down it talks about both the Community Support Fund and the Public Grants, which once we approved at the last council meeting in September. There's about $24,000 worth of grant funds that have now gone out. I thought it was a fantastic effort and a fantastic result for our community. The next thing I was going to mention was on page 21, the Out of the Square series. We had Town Hall packed out with people listening to a number of acts, including Rachel Learcast, which I think was fantastic to activate the Town Hall in that way, and I thought worth mentioning today as well. While we're on the Town Hall, we now have an electric mobility scooter recharge point in the Town Hall lobby. So those of you who know people with small scooters and coasters and you need to be recharged, you can now do that in the Town Hall. I'll move on to page 28. Some of you might remember we had a deputation some time ago by Rosa Matto, who talked about the food trail. That's now become a reality, which is fantastic, and works best on the food and art trail project. And Rosa Matto is involved in that as well, which is really good. Page 38, I thought I'd mention too, the vacancy rate. So colleagues, I'm sure you've all had a look at and identified prospect hard as having the lowest vacancy rate or compared to other main streets in Adelaide, which is great at 2.8%. But that's worth mentioning. We often talk about that issue. We've now got a report that confirms that, which is something that we can use around about talking to the community. The final thing I want to mention was on page 61, the value of approved developments. And we were saying last week on that. Total in 2015 28, almost $29 million compared to almost $6 million last year. A significant, not to understate it, a very significant increase in development applications and activity, largely along our main arterial roads. So there are a few things that I saw that I thought were interesting to point out to the community. Happy to ask if there are any questions or any comments you want to make before I seek someone to move the paper. Councillor Diane.
Yeah, I think it's on page 13. It suddenly came up my screen and disappeared. CS1, our community, general inspection activities functions, WASB complaints received, and European WASP destroyed, which happens to be zero. But I'm just wondering, I did read somewhere that the state government's no longer going to subsidise local government for that area. So is that going to present us with any particular issues down the track on that?
Yes, through the chair. I'd have to take that question on notice and get back to you with some information.
Yeah. None. None. Okay, I'll ask if somebody would be happy to move the council information reports. Deputy House, please. Anyone to second that motion?
Sorry. I didn't need to attract.
Councillor Barnett, coughing first. Sorry, Councillor Harris. Did you want to
I
make an
only
issue about
brought
that?
4 pieces of paper and I wasn't quick enough.
You weren't. Sorry, it's actually been moved and seconded, so it was yours now.
So it's moved and second, then I can talk on
You
it.
can, but
I don't need that much. I would if I tried to find it. The question I had centred around the tree program, the 21 tree program, and that we'd done a survey around the place, 54 streets. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head as it goes. 54 streets, and we also finished the current tree planting of this year, last year, this year, and we're looking at the new year, and we're looking at using trees in line with the new 21 program. I wouldn't mind if someone knew the name of it.
21st century
21st, we're using it for them, and to my knowledge, particularly because I've got a couple of areas of concern, is we haven't endorsed that yet. We got given it to us as a workshop to have a look, and then they were going to go away, and they were going to have an arbitrist go out, see things, and then it was going to come back. So to my knowledge, we haven't endorsed it yet, and by accepting it in this report, are we endorsing it? We're not. So it's still going to come back to a workshop.
Acting Director,
Through the chair, I believe that the survey results will feed into the 21st Century Tree Manual, so it'll be developed around the survey results, but I'll confirm that for you.
So
it won't...
because we go bounce back. It's simply that, do we get to see it before it's a final product? That's the main thing, so we can have our 2 bottles worth.
Through the chair, I believe that you would, but again, I'll take on those and confirm that for you.
Okay. Well, then I'm happy to go along with the rest of the people.
thank you, Councillor Harris. Sorry, I got you.
It's my fault. I can read it quickly.
Councillor Bowman.
Ask something on the same line about information.
No. Yeah,
Just on that, I noticed they've got the, on the map viewer, they've got a digital GIS location, which would be a great sort of publicly available information.
So what page is that?
This is page 63 of the Geo Maps that we do have. This one here.
Sorry, Councillor Bowman, what were you asking about?
It was just in regards to could that information potentially be publicly available? Because I think, you know, I'm involved with open data, and I think that would be a really handy thing to have, to know what street trees you've got and when they're being replaced and all those kind of things. And also just on the 21st Century Street Tree Manual, I believe that some householders have been contacted. It had to the householder envelopes. Well, I certainly had it in my street. And I know we were having issues with the reply rates with that kind of information. And I'm just wondering what the response rate has been thus far, the amount that you've sent out.
So 2 questions, one about the open data.
Yes.
Assessment, looking another one about response rate.
Yep.
So through the chair, with the GIS data, currently we're in the middle of a project that we're collecting data for the trees in our park. So that's still in progress at the moment. In terms of making it public, I'm not sure what the plans are for that, so I'll take on notice and find out for you. In terms of the survey and the results and how that's progressing, the results are currently being collated, and so there's no sort of definitive answer on that at the moment. But again, I can find out actually.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman. Anyone else? No, so I should go back to the mover and see if they want to sum up.
Excuse me. I will say that thank you to council staff yet again for an excellent informative report. It's such a really good way for us to find out lots of things, to get across lots of things that are going on in our city. So it's very much appreciated, the detail that's in here. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carries. We'll move on to 15.1, which is the policy and procedure. Now, with the brief reason why you brought it out.
I wanted to congratulate the team for finally getting this policy together after it seems like many years of not having it.
You should move it.
I do, yes. So first I'd like to congratulate the team who worked on this, the champions, and also Nathan's team to finally get a policy around this. It does seem a little bit strange that this has been lingering for a while and was first came to light about a year ago, I suppose, and it's taken us a year to get this policy together, which I think is a long time, in my opinion. I don't know whether there's opportunities for condensing down the time it takes to move this type of discussion through Council for approval. It's a good start. We've got something in place that we can work on. I think the success of it's going to be based on how well we promote and publicise the opportunity to our community. Based on the fact that it seems like we have trouble giving away money in some instances, I'd like to make sure that we don't have trouble giving away this money and that we do put a fair amount of effort into promoting it. And I would like to think that this is a start, and I'd like to think that once it's been proven that it is successful and is something that our community demands, then we can get a little bit more sophisticated about how we segment up what this actually means and create some pro formas around the types of things that people could do and make it even easier for people to apply for grants that apply for funds. And I'd also like to see us in future years aim a little bit higher when it comes to creating multiple events based around a theme that have a larger impact on our community and give us a better opportunity to leverage and create PR around what we're doing. So, for example, if we in a couple of years' time became the Christmas street closure capital of the world, that'd be an awesome thing to have arisen. Or maybe the state first of all, metropolitan, shrink it down, metropolitan state, Australia, the world. And then, so I think that the opportunity to leverage the fact that we come up with this and we promoted this is an idea. I think that's what we should be aiming for in a couple of years' time. But yeah, I'd like to just close off by saying thanks to Nathan and the team for getting this to this point.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I'd like to second it. And most of you have seen my email I sent around previously. You know, very pleased that we have, as Councillor Larwood indicated, gotten to this point, and also that we've taken in the policy on board, which I think was one big full stop to particularly the Collinswood one, and the cost of actually putting these on, you know, reaches like over the $1,000. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing that I think, you know, bureaucracy and red tape, be it that we supposedly have to have all this, and this is the way policies have to be written. But I'm reassured by our director and our staff that this is policy like for us, the bureaucratic part of it, and then we're going to have something that's a bit more fun and a bit more, you know, less bureaucratic, and will explain in a bit more of a fun way to try and attract more more streets to actually become more, you know, get to know your neighbour and all that. There have been quite a few streets that I think have got quite a few new neighbours in them now, and so I think we're on the right track with this. So I look forward to the the fun explanation of it all throughout the community.
Councillor, any other comments?
I guess just to speak in favour of it, and it's exactly what Councillor Larwood and Councillor Barnett have already spoken about, but I see it as doing two things that are really important. The first one is it allows council to act as an enabler rather than a doer all of the time. And so this is all about residents and groups and people coming together in our city and doing it through council's blessing rather than through council's organisation. And I think through that it can be a whole lot more successful because people have ownership of it, they have a sense of pride in what they put on, and they'll get far more value and I think contribute to our community in a far stronger way through themselves in fact owning it and really doing it as we have seen so well with street parties that already occur in our city. So long may they live, I think. Long may this policy bring about more of them, and it certainly is, I think, it's a well-meaning intention for council to want to push this out to encourage people to organise things in their own community and to generate a sense of activity in their own streets. So I'm very excited to see what can become of it.
Evans, the other councillors wish to speak? No, if not, I'll hand back to Councillor Larwood.
I don't think I can think of anything else to say.
All those in favour? Measure is carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to 15.2, the Eastern Health Authority Charter Review. Councillor Evans, you moved it. You withdrew it. Brief reasons.
I'd like to propose an amendment.
You would not like to move it. You don't want to move it?
No, that's right, yes, I would want to.
Just before I ask for a move, I might just ask the Acting CEO just to provide a bit of context to this, because this particular issue has been around for some time, particularly given we're going to also talk about amendments. Might be useful. Acting CEO to do that.
Thanks, Mr Chair, and through you, the executive summary probably does provide a relevant amount of context for you, but I guess just to recap that, Eastern Health Authority is a regional subsidiary. Each constituent council has to agree to any changes to a charter, so you need unanimous agreement. The issue that we've had is that City of Prospect agreed with the charter some 18 to 24 months ago, which a couple of other constituent councils in relation to the makeup of the board members had proposed further amendments, and that has led to a process of a bit of a cyclic discussion around the merits or otherwise of full elected members on the board, or a combination or hybrid of elected members and staff or independent experts. Not sure whether or not that provided a lot more clarity, but I guess it focuses down the issue on every member needs to agree. So we need to be careful with the words that we're suggesting, because then those words are going to be put to every member council, so the other 5 to have to consider and adopt those as well.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett, you wish to move?
Yes, for the purposes of discussion and to see what my fellow councillor wishes as amendment, and further to background, I've been on this Eastern Health Authority board prior when this came up. I say prior because since then we've had local council elections, and some of the people from the other councils, there was a bit of argy-bargy going on about who was going to be representing their council as a board member, and I think that was the important point that a lot of the board then and still now feel that that if you go on there as a board member, well, then you have a fiduciary obligation to be there and put that particular hat on. So you're not to put the hat on of, as some was suggested, they just wanted their paid staff person to be there. And I think Prospect Council had a bit of conflicting legal advice to what some of the other councils had at that particular time. So now this is really as has been put before you and explained by the director, this is really now a compromise situation. I guess to try and actually get the whole charter, we've got all of it moved except for this, the composition of the board members, so it really needs to be finalised. So I look forward to seeing what might be the amendment.
I sent through a couple of suggested words, and I'm not sure if we might have those here just for sake of ease. There we go. There's one I prepared earlier. Would you like me to read that out? Is that the standard procedure? So each constituent council shall appoint 2 persons as board members for a fixed term of 2 years, being either 2 elected members of the constituent council or 1 elected member of the constituent council and 1 suitably qualified person to act on behalf of that constituent council. In the event of a resignation or incapacity to serve for the duration of the 2-year term as a board member, the constituent council shall appoint either another elected member or suitably qualified person to represent that constituent council, such that at any time each constituent council shall be represented by no less than 1 elected member.
What's the difference?
Councillor, this is your part to speak to it, so you...
Okay, so I can speak to it as well as just read it out. Okay, so I guess, yeah, just to provide some context around all these words, there are 2 things that I would like to propose are changed from the initial recommendation. And I think what we're doing by suggesting that there be a composition or providing for the opportunity for there to be a composition of elected members and other persons is quite a good thing. And the Eastern Health Authority deals in a whole lot of technical stuff. They audit food premises, they vaccinate our children, they look after vector control, environmental health outcomes that are really quite technical in nature. And I think the debate, from what I understand, and I haven't been a part of it, of previous councils, focusing on whether it's staff or elected members that comprise this board, kind of missed the opportunity and missed the point in my view. Because I think there is a real opportunity to get some independent expertise on the board of the Eastern Health Authority that have environmental health knowledge. For instance, at board meetings we're provided with information around the number of food premises audited, the number of children vaccinated, how many environmental health officers we have on the ground at any one particular time, what the response is to any particular outbreaks of any diseases or anything like that. Very technical concepts, and you know, as a chartered accountant I get the financial side of the organisation, but to say I'm completely across these technical elements of environmental health would not, I think, be reflective of the complete truth. They do require some particular expertise, and the board is guided by the staff of the Eastern Health Authority, as is right, but would it not be better if there were the ability for councils to appoint, where required, independent expertise or staff as well? So in our earlier recommendation, the one that's before you in the meeting papers, it really focused on the difference of whether we can have staff or not. And I think the opportunity is to say, can we appoint people, be it staff or be it persons suitably qualified, rather than limiting it just to staff? And in doing that, I think we would by far get better outcomes in terms of the skill set that comprise the board of the Eastern Health Authority. I liken this similarly to DAP as well, so our Development Assessment Panel, and they deal in very complex issues of planning that require skills and expertise, and so we find people with those skills and expertise to bring their knowledge to the table in the form of a Development Assessment Panel. I'm not sure the Eastern Health Authority is any less. I see the role of elected members on EHA to be important at a governance and strategic and spotlight perspective, because after all this is important stuff and you know the community needs to be represented. But as well, I think providing the opportunity for there to be appointment of particular skill sets that contribute to environmental health outcomes would also be a very positive move. The second part of the motion that I've proposed as an amendment is to cap the term at 2 years, rather than it being a case of anyone can come on and come off at a motion of a council. If we were serious about appointing people with skills and expertise to serve on the board of EHA, naturally the logic is that comes with a finite term. So they're not appointed indefinitely or until the wind changes. They're appointed for a term of X. You could go further and argue that for continuity purposes there should be alternating terms and all sorts of other fun things. And I'm sure this will be trashed out in the other constituent councils as well. But from a strategic perspective, I see there being value in focusing more on the skill set rather than whether or not the person is an elected member or a staff member. And if it is a skill set and we are looking for external persons, I see having a time bound or a finite period of time through which a person could be appointed as being an important part of the motion as well. So that's what I proposed that's different.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. I might just refer to the acting CEO if there are any comments on the amendment.
Certainly, and through you, I'm just in looking at what's put forward, the two changes proposed. We did a little bit of research this afternoon with EHAR in terms of how it can work and can function. Touching on the makeup, the change in makeup, which is part B of what's proposed, we, from I guess professional point of view, think that can work, and it will allow, I guess, the doors to be a little bit more open. That it's not just elected member and/or staff; it'll be elected member and/or staff and/or professionals. We think that can work from a board perspective, and it's probably a little bit more open in relation to the previous legal advice that had some issues around staff and their ability to take off their staff hat, put on their board hat. So I think that is a more than acceptable amendment in terms of its legality and its enforceability. The issue of the 2-year term is a new thing, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and I guess from a practitioner's point of view I would support that. I guess the issue from an ability for the Charter to be amended and that to be delivered, it is new, so these words would then have to go to the other 5 constituent councils, and then they would have to determine whether or not fixing a term is appropriate, and if so, is 2 years appropriate, is 4 years appropriate, or, as quite rightly you pointed out, is a staggered approach appropriate. I may just caution the council in being so bold as to say 2 years, and fixing that. We may want to suggest a term that can be considered, but as you quite rightly know, at this point in time, each council sets their own terms. Maybe City of Prospect wants to set its own term, or maybe City of Prospect wants to put forward a view, and I guess that'll be the difficulty, I think, in getting that part through the board in order to get the Charter changed. But the other part, I think that is quite open and flexible.
So, Councillor, do you have 1 minute left?
Other than, I'm happy to take that advice and perhaps amend the words in that context to reflect a term rather than a 2-year term. The 2-year term was a nominal figure just to reflect, I guess, an intention that an appointed person would want to serve for a finite period. So if that was somehow conveyed in 2.2.2, I think it would be doing its job if that would be the better advice.
Your amendment, so if you want to make a change,
Okay, well, let's change 2-year term to a term defined by the constituent council.
Yeah. And that's just... Point of order?
My point of order is, isn't altering the term substantially changing? I didn't think an amendment could substantially change the motion before it.
The amendment hasn't been seconded yet, so it's still passed. So at this point, my advice would, let me guess, my advice, I'm thinking,
and through the chair, I don't think it's contrary either. I think we're dealing, I guess, with the technical numerical component of the motion. So I think it would satisfy the test.
Sorry, let me just go on point of order. So on that advice, I don't believe that there's a point of order. Sorry, can we just get these words right? And I know, Councillor, you've got a brief question to do. Okay. Can we just change them and then you ask? Okay. What's your question?
So would it hurt if we put the two-year term in there? So what will happen to the motion? Say if we pass this, it will go back to the board and then they will vote it through the chair to Councillor Evans. They will look at this and then they will vote it and make amendments if they see they need amendments?
My understanding, and I'll accept and see if I'm wrong, is that it will have to go back to all the constituent councils, all the member councils for consideration before it's voted on by the EHAR board.
Okay.
Through the chair, I believe that's correct.
So it won't be like Councillor Evans will have a time to put forward his point about the two-year terms, because I actually think it's a good idea, but...
Not unless you made a deputation for each council. Brief question.
No, I'm going to second it and I can say my comments as I go along.
Okay, if you say I promoted Councillor Evans, the words up on the screen, are you happy with those? For a term to be defined by councils?
Yes, happy with that.
Okay. So the amendment is what's before you now. I'll now seek a seconder to the amendment. Councillor Harris.
I've seconded it, and my seconding comes in particularly in line that we've changed as opposed to putting 2-year term as a term, because I believe if we got 1 vote or 2 votes in the group, and when they come and the whole sort of group decides, oh, we might do a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, then you'd have to say, well, I can't, well, we'd have to say, whoever's on the board would have to say, well, I can't accept that because we've said 2 years, I'm going to have to go back. But to follow what another councillor raised earlier, I think by saying a set term gives our representative on there to play with that figures with the other people that are on the board. So my concern, and I think previous councillors' concerns before came from the idea that to hand something over, and it wasn't just, but it was centred with individuals around, the staff might have that staff hat on and that sort of stuff, but some of us had a problem with it's making a decision about our city in conjunction with others, that we felt it was more important to at least have a representative of the people through us on that thing. So that's why the 1-2 is not as important. As long as there's one, it should always be the one. By now changing it, and we've put that it's up, and in our case, at the moment, it'll be up at your discretion when you go there. And if they say, well, look, we'll try a 2-year, 1 year, it gives you that avenue to work around it. So I'm quite happy to second that, particularly because we've still got a voice on there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Anyone else wish to speak to the amendments? No?
Just one.
Yes, you can. Sorry,
I can't. Okay, that's right, I second it. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just checking my hand. Okay, back to Councillor Evans to sum up.
I think I've said what I wanted to say about it. I think it's important to have an opportunity for there to be appointed persons as well as elected member representatives, and I think we've done that through this. So.
Thank you. Now we'll be voting on the amendments. So all those in favour on the amendments? Those no one yet. So that's carried unanimously. So the amendment becomes the motion. So just give me a check my protocols. Yes, correct. So okay. So the amendment becomes the motion. So we're now debating the motion itself. And there's still a couple of councillors who haven't spoken, so I'll give the opportunity if anyone else wishes to speak to the amendment motion. If not, Councillor Barnett, would you like to sum up?
It will be interesting to see how it goes, so I guess that's all we can do, wait and see.
Thank you. We'll vote on the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried. I'll move on to 18.1, which is the Planning Development and Infrastructure Bill, and that was by Councillor Bowman. Did you just rephrase on Councillor Bowman when you pulled that?
Can I just, is it just me, or is these documents not hyperlinked? The ones that were sent to you, or the ones online? Maybe that's where I'm having trouble.
So just rephrasing.
Yep, sorry. Right, that's okay. Well, can I not, because I just realised this is noting the report. Actually, note the introduction. Okay. Yep. All right. So which I can't really do anything with. So we're just noting it. Is that correct? So I don't want to pull it out anymore.
You already have.
Okay. So
no, you don't have to move it.
I don't have to. Okay. All right.
So you pulled it out.
But I really, yeah.
So looking for someone to move.
I'll move it.
Wish to speak to it? Somebody with a second motion. Councillor Stanley, would you like to speak to it? Would anyone else like to speak to it? Councillor Bowman, you get the first slide. You don't have to speak.
That's fine. I'm just, yeah. Okay.
No? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lee, I presume you don't want to sum up? Just from the chair's point of view, this is this is an important motion, and so thought about, because it does reflect the council's position on having such a bill, and I think provide some clarity on the decision we made some time ago, and also reinforces our view on the important bill issue. Take it to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? So I'll do that again because I wasn't quite sure.
Well,
Councillor Barnett.
Well, you can get a chance to comment. Sorry.
I did ask anyone else wants to speak. Oh.
So it's gross than that.
Yeah. Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to it? Apparently I'm the chair, so I can make a decision to allow somebody to speak if they wish.
Councillor Barnett.
No.
Right?
No.
Okay. Good. Thank you. We'll go for a vote on that. We'll try again. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Moving on to 19.2. Councillor Bowman, brief reasons. Local Government Association.
Yes, so this is in regards to, there was a vote and it was in regards to the LGA's stance on the planning bill, I believe. Yes, thank you. So like ecological rescue, you know.
So you wish to ask
no.
a question about that? Is that
Yes, yes.
Do you want to move it as well?
If I can, thank you.
Yes, okay. The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, so it was just in regards to, if you notice that we've got the green, yellow and red highlight, not supported, I just wanted to clarify a point on regards to page 285, 8.9, and I just wanted to draw attention to the public participation in the development assessment process not supported. So I just wanted to clarify, if we're not supporting that, that's your position, and if as council you're an elected member when you go to the LGA, do you vote as an elected member or do you vote yourself?
Okay, so there's two questions there. Is this my view? This is the view that's in the
Yes.
paper for, in the papers for discussion now. So
Yeah.
that's just the view that is put forward, and we can have a debate about that.
Right.
I'll represent the council at the delegation.
Right, but
I'm there representing.
so if you're there representing council, if we sort of say this is what we want, do you have to represent that, or you're not bound?
Well, with the intent, I don't think I'm actually bound to, but the intent is very much to represent.
Yeah, not that I would trust you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that point because it didn't make it clear.
Yeah. I'll say publicly that I'll vote on each of the motions as council being discussed.
Yeah, so
Sorry, Minister Douglas has just made a good point. If during the debate there was a compelling point about something, then I think the result and the voting representative can change the vote.
right.
But as a whole, I think if we debate on that as a period, that would be certainly intended to be voting position.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you? So this is your 5 minutes. I just want to make sure if there's any other questions.
Yeah. So just in regards to this, I'll just read out the proposed motion that the annual general meeting lobby members of Parliament to provide in planning legislation a greater opportunity for the public to participate in the development assessment process, particularly by reinstating and or allowing for expected public notification to adjoining or adjacent properties of dwelling additions and mixed-use buildings over 1 story in height when proposed on land within or adjacent to any residential zone. So I've got here not supported. So was this done by the staff or like with the green, yellow, red, or is this captured from workshops? I'm just trying to...
This was captured essentially by a conversation between the mayor and myself.
Right, okay. So is it the proposed motion wording that's not supported, or is it the intent that's not supported?
Well, the proposal was that that's reads there, so there's no capacity for us to change.
Change it, okay, right.
Unless we put an amendment on the day. So
You could have put an amendment.
And it stands, the view that we came with to debate tonight.
Yeah, yeah. So this is basically what LGA is, their response back to the government. No, this is...
This is a motion by another council, by
Yep.
your side.
Yeah,
And we'll go before the AGM for debate.
yeah. All right, so I'm just trying to garner, I suppose, comment from the rest of the councillors as to what they would support or not support and why. Because certainly, I think for anyone who attended the meeting at the Burnside, had advice just to ask why it's not supported.
Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor.
So just before that gets answered, can I just, is there a view that we should go into session to have some discussion on this? We will find it useful, because we can do that and then we can have a bit more.
Yeah, talk about it.
So I propose that we suspend the procedures for 10 minutes. Yeah, and so someone to move that. Yeah. We go out of session till 8 p.m. I don't know, I'm just leaving the meeting to suspend the procedures until 8 p.m. All those in favour? Thank you, we'll do that. Okay, I've been taking session. So Councillor Bowman, you've got a minute or so left if you...
Probably best I don't use it, yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to take out a session and clarify that point. I appreciate it.
Someone do second the motion. Councillor Lee. Do you wish to speak to the motion? Anyone else like to speak to the motion? So Bowman, do you want to say that?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favour? Carried. And that brings us to the end of the motion tonight. I'll move on to council diary. There's a number of things in the council diary. I just want to point out the first topic there, which is the funeral of the late Brian Hurd. The funeral was held today. Farmers market later on this week. On Thursday, Children's Week launch is happening at the library at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday this week. So if you have an opportunity to come along to that, that would be great. Those of you who haven't been to the library lately, you'll see there's quite a marked improvement in the children's area. Some very exciting things happening there. Club 5082 is happening on Friday the 30th. Spring Art Show is coming up at Phillips. And I might just mention the bus tour, the Terrific Prospect bus tour, which is occurring on Thursday the 26th of November. So it would be great to have as many events there as well. I'll move on to general business. Are there any items of general business? Councillor Harris.
Lady?
Do you have an item?
Yeah. Not urgent, mate, just ordinary one.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I wanted to call for a report on, now I forget what I wrote, but the basis of what I wrote is calling a report on the new developments that are happening and proposed to happen around the city, particularly Churchill Road at the moment, but the other ones. And I don't know if people know, but some of the buildings are getting higher, and our avenues allowing 3, 4, 5, and the 8 ones are only one area, but it's a lot of the others are 3, 4, and 5 around the place. And some of our acts, our local acts, are protecting pedestrians in particular of falling objects and stuff like that. I don't believe cover things like covered walkways and that. When you're doing a single house, 2-storey house, call for a report on the development being okayed around the city with regards to safety of the general public, particularly regarding walkways and covered hoardings. Now, I don't think we have anything in our stuff about that. I'm not going to throw you in the box seat at the end, but I believe I'd like to start looking at it if we're going up in height, and particularly those that the Chief was here, he would say, might not agree with me, but he'd say that once we start getting to 3s and 4s and that, we start using a lot more formwork, a lot of different sort of stuff on the side, and they come, and there's an incident happened down on Churchill Road the other day where the job was closed down because of stuff that fell out in the road, which was formwork. And so I'm concerned, and I'd like us to have a report on what our attitude is, and then we can argue it back or whatever, on hoardings and particularly covered walkways over commercial buildings of height.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
No time limit. I'm not going to sum up.
So the intent of what you're trying to do is understand those properties being constructed in Sydney. What's that?
And it will be. Yeah.
And will be. Just so we're really clear, can we change the word okay to constructed? So that's being constructed. It's just because it's approved and it's necessarily being built. Yes. So we want to take the vote before we build.
Yep. Covered walkway.
Covered walkway. So are you happy with those words?
It gets my conversation, yes.
Okay, thank you. Somebody seconds that. Oh, arms all around. Councillor Larwood. Wish to speak? Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I've been a bit concerned about this as well, particularly ones that are very close to the footpath, some on the corner of Allen and Street and Churchill Road. Yeah, so I'd be particularly keen to see the result of this report.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to?
Yeah, just in regards to, again, this might come back to the Development Assessment Panel, but I don't know when things are being built right to the boundary, how that's addressed in the council for what distance they need around it to actually construct it and the impact. I don't know if that information ever comes past a councillor.
Is that a question?
Kind of.
Yeah. Through the chair, it's I have to look into the specifics, but we would have a permit system administered by our Infrastructure Assets and Environment Department in relation to hoardings on council land or scaffolding on council land or things like that. But I'd have to look into the specifics and the criteria around that. I do note that the example that Councillor Barnett raised in relation to the corner of Allen Street, initially an ATCO hut or a site office was placed blocking the footpath of Churchill Road, and we required that to be moved into Allen Street rather than blocking the main pedestrian thoroughfare of Churchill Road. But again, that's the specifics of it we can certainly look into to give you further advice. But in short, there's a permit system to erect or construct or utilise council land. Council, as delegated through its staff, needs to approve or not.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor?
I'm just clarifying it out loud. So again, just through the chair, when a development comes to the DAP or the DAC, whatever it is, in the development, say, so for example, it's tilt up concrete and it's been built right to the boundaries, would the developer then say at the point of submission, we need X amount of space to build this type of construction? Because it doesn't really, you know, it's trying to understand the impact on that total locality, not just the building itself and the shading and whatever, because it might be 6 months in construction and we're not to know that.
Through the chair, and unfortunately, I guess the answer to that is it's not part of the planning assessment, and I guess the Development Act and the plan is relatively clear in that it looks at the subject land and the nature of the proposal, not necessarily the impacts during construction. The permit process, if it is beyond the site, and any metro council, certainly more than rural, will have to deal with those, but that's the process for dealing with that.
Councillor Bowman, anything else? Anyone else wish to speak? No. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, just to finish off and tidy up a couple of those points. No way, I think currently our plans and the way we do it and construct the building on site is all well and good. The concern that I have on this one is particularly as we're going up higher, and now they build more basically on the boundary, you know, around, and you come, and particularly if we get 3 and above, we can look, once they're 4, and the Chinese are getting very good at this now, are starting to use Babcos and fixed cranes and things, even on 4 and 5, and that would happen at number 8 for sure, there'll be no other question. So my concern comes as what we do as council for the residents. It's up to the government departments, plans, all those things for the builder on site to look after their people. But my concern comes about the residents walking past and all that stuff and things forward. And as you get higher, it gets more dangerous. And 2 days ago, we had an experience of a spanner, one shifting spanner come, the helmet saved, but the person's pretty well messed up, but it didn't split the head. So I'd hate to see that to a child on the outside. So looking forward to a report.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. All those in favour? It's carried. Any other items of general business? No. Items of general business of an urgent nature.
Thank you. That's the only word I wanted to use. Those that know, they understand.
Confidential items, there are none, and so I therefore close the meeting at 11 minutes past 8, and you'll very much.